I'm a nobody from nowhere that ain't never done nothing. That's what I am. An old head. These young coaches, I tell you what, I can't figure these jokers out. They got a backpack on and tight something. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting on my nerves, I can tell you that. I know what ain't in the backpack. A string and a let me paint that line for you. That ain't in there. That's for sure. I had a kid the other day. He said, "Hey, coach, didn't Christopher Columbus write the Pledge of Allegiance?" I said he sure did. He also played quarterback for the 1985 Chicago Bears. He said, bet. That happened. Sun Coaches, Season 6, where coaches come and tell their stories. Some of them are funny. Some of them is going to help you in your coaching journey. Not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Sun Coaches, brought to you by Titan Sensor. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA, proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 6, and today I'm excited to be joined by the head coach of Monroe High School in Albany, Georgia, Coach Lacey Heron. Thanks for being on with me.
Coach, I appreciate you having me, man. It's an honor to be a part of this conversation and this podcast with you, man. So I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me.
Well, Coach is on vacation this week. He's not really on vacation, he said, but he's out in San Antonio, Texas, joining me today, which is a cool place. But during the dead week, and of course this will air way after that. But Coach, where did you actually grow up and go to high school?
I actually grew up in Douglas, Georgia. I graduated from Coffee High School, class of 2003. I was a starting quarterback there in the 01-02 season, my junior and senior year. And so, I'm from Douglas, born and raised, Coffee Trojan, still at heart. Keep up with the program even now that I've graduated and gone on to do different things. But it's, a lot of the people that I graduated high school with, their kids are now the players in those programs. So it's just kind of cool to watch, their children continue to carry on the legacy and, everything that we did when we were at Coffee and really exceeded. Being able to bring a state championship to the city for the first time, man, that was pretty cool to watch. I was actually in attendance, and I think we brought the whole city to Atlanta. But yeah, it was really cool to see that, and just to see how Coffee has progressed over the years. Under Coach Pruitt and now under Coach Cole, just to see how Coffee football has changed over the years. So it's been pretty phenomenal to watch.
Well, who was your high school coach?
My high school coach was Bonwell Royal. So I had two coaches during my time there. Coach Bonwell Royal came out of retirement my junior year to coach us. But before him, my freshman and sophomore year, we had Coach Giddens, who both just recently passed. But Coach Giddens was one of the directors of the GHSA. But he coached me my freshman and sophomore year, and the contrast in offenses was very vast, man. Coach Giddens was a spread guy, and so I loved that system and was eager to be a part of it and eager to play within that system. And then Coach Royal came back my junior year when I became the starter, and thought that my talents would be better utilized in the wing T system, which is what he ran. And, but I had two phenomenal coaches, man, both great guys, both taught me a lot. And, I'll forever remember both of those guys.
Well, what else did you play in high school besides football, or were you just a football kid?
I played basketball, ran track, but those things didn't stick all 4 years. I just kind of dabbled in them a little bit, if that makes sense. Growing up, I always thought I would be a basketball player. Actually my first love was basketball. But when I got into high school, my family had a real conversation with me, and hey man, how many 5'10", 5'11" point guards are in the NBA? Well, not very many. Well, how many 5'10", 5'11" football players are there? Well, there's quite a bit. So hey, you might want to take this football thing a little more serious. And so that was kind of a decision that I made. But I kind of dabbled in multiple sports. So football, basketball, track, and baseball.
So what did you get an opportunity to play at the next level?
I did. Coming out of high school, so Coach Royal saw some things in me, my athleticism and abilities, and he kind of introduced me to some different positions to make me more marketable. So I played some running back, I played some receiver in addition to being a starting quarterback. And so I had some major college opportunities. Had I been willing to switch my position and play receiver or running back, but for some reason, I was determined and adamant to play quarterback. So the only place that I got an opportunity from coming out of high school to play at the quarterback position was Fort Valley State University, Division II school up in Fort Valley, Georgia. So I played there my freshman year, um, and actually had an opportunity to start as a freshman. Tore my ACL, and was unable to finish that season as a player. And then I transferred to Shorter University, and I played there the remainder of my career, where I went up and was team captain, and it was a startup program. But I actually switched my position and played running back and receiver there. So kind of a missed opportunity. You know what I mean? Like could have been, uh, could have been FCS or P4, or it was P5 at the time. Had I been willing to switch my position out of high school, but because I wasn't, I ended up doing it at a smaller level. So it's kind of one of those things where hindsight is 2020. Had I been willing to make the switch a little earlier, some things probably could have worked out differently for me. But just kind of one of those things, man. You live and you learn.
That's right. Well, you got to chase your dream. You only got one.
Yeah, no doubt,
You
no
get
doubt.
one shot at it. We tell the kids that all the time, and you gotta chase. I like to look at it this way. At the time, it was the best decision you could have made
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you.
absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
no regrets. So,
Yes, sir.
did you know the whole time in college that you wanted to teach and coach in the future, or did you? I mean, I'm sure you wanted to play professionally, but I mean, your plan B, was it be an accountant or go to med school or open a
Yeah.
business? I mean, what did you go there to major in, or did you say I'd like to teach and coach if this doesn't work out?
So I actually came to that conclusion while I was at Fort Valley. When I tore my ACL and I was unable to play, Coach Covington was my OC at Fort Valley. And so he kind of introduced me into the coaching world. Because I was unable to practice and do things with the team, he insisted that I help him out just so that I continue to learn and grow as a player. And so that was kind of my introduction into coaching quarterbacks with him, and uh, gaining a deeper understanding of the system and terminology, and how to teach and implement, how to install, how to watch film. I did a lot of things with him during that time that I was hurt, and I just kind of grew to love it. I was like, well, if I can't play professionally, I would love to get into coaching. Like this would be a great plan B, just because it keeps me around the game, and the things that I've learned I can pass on to younger players. So that was kind of my introduction. So that's when I came into that realization my freshman year of college at Fort Valley.
Well, there's a lot of you shorter guys that are coaching high school ball in Georgia now. There's
Absolutely, man. That's a ton of us.
there's like a West Georgia guys and shorter guys. It's like a little fraternity of high school coaches. A lot of times back in when I first got started, it was Georgia Southern guys, and
Yeah, yeah.
the West Georgia and shorter guys are starting to take over the coaching ranks, and you guys came out and look after each other and do a good job. So, what was your first job out of college coaching, teaching once you got
um,
done?
yeah, I was at Unity Christian School up in Rome, Georgia. So our co-defensive coordinator, Coach Joe Curtis, He took the head job at Unity Christian School, which was a private school in Rome, and he initially brought me on just as a position coach. Something fell through going into that first season with the guy that he hired as his OC, and he and I would spend a lot of time on the board. Me being offensive minded, just I would draw things on the board um, versus whatever he was going to do defensively. And he was like, "Well, man, you have a great understanding of offense. Do you want to be the OC?" And at the time, I was like 22 years old and scared out of my mind, like it was my first opportunity. But I was like, "Yeah." And so I took it, and he was one of those guys that he kind of shot it to me straight, taught me how to be a professional. And he was like, "Hey, man, listen, I know we know each other personally, but I'm hiring you to do a job. I'm not going to hold your hand. Do your job. I'm going to evaluate you at the end of the year. If I like the job you do, I'll keep you and bring you back. If I don't, I'm gonna fire you." He kind of he was a straight shooter. But my first season, I think we were 5-5 and made the playoffs. My second season, I kind of switched up my offense a little bit and started doing something a little new and had a down year. I think we were like 2-8, something like that. And then my third year, we were 7-3, and then went deep into the playoffs and won a private school state championship. So I was there for 3 years and um, had a pretty good career there in a short amount of time.
That's awesome. So where did you go after that?
I went to Texas. I During that time while I was that short, I met my wife. Um, she's originally from California, so she's from Bay Area, California, and she moved out to Houston, Texas after she graduated high school. I'm sorry, after she graduated college from Sacramento State, and she moved out to Houston. And I met her randomly in Atlanta through a mutual friend. We kind of hit it off, and we dated during my last year um, at Unity. And when we decided to get serious and started talking about marriage, she was actually in grad school. I didn't want her to have to transfer her credits or anything like that. So I moved out to Houston and started a career in coaching out there. Um, you know, Getting a PE job is tough anywhere, man. And I was PE certified. So my initial job out of Houston was out of middle school, at De Zavala Middle School. And I coached at Jackson Intermediate for 2 years. Um, and it was pretty fun. But their feeder school was Pasadena High School, and so I would do some things with the coaches at Pasadena High, and they were trying to get me to change my certification so that I could move up to coach at the high school level. But again, me being stubborn, I didn't really want to do it. I wanted to remain in the gym, but I got an opportunity and to come back to Georgia at Turner County High School with John Gamble, who was the head coach at the time. And so I moved back as the OC at Turner County for a year, and then we went back to Houston. So I went from Unity to Houston, back to Georgia, then back to Houston, and spent some time at a few places out in Houston. I was at Aldine ISD. I was at Dayton ISD at Dayton High School, Anahuac ISD at Anahuac High School, and then I finished up at Baytown Lee High School before coming back to Georgia as the head coach at Monroe High School.
So what were all the positions you held up there? Were they all coordinator spots, or were they position coaching
Yeah,
spots? Or
they were co-coordinator spots. And in Texas, I moved around so much because one of the prerequisites of being a head football coach in Texas is you have to coach. You have to be the head coach of multiple minor sports before you can become a head football coach. Because in most places out here, out in Texas, if you're a head football coach, you're also the campus AD. And so they wanted you to have familiarity with other programs before they put you in that position so that you would know what it takes to run those programs, what the costs are, and you would be able to successfully run a program because you've kind of been through it. So you would know what the coaches need, know what they're going through. You would be more adequate to hire a staff, like a full staff outside of football and things of that nature, just because you have some experience coaching those other sports. And so that's why I bounced around so much. Um, at some places I was like co-OC, quarterbacks coach, and head baseball, or I might have been in Anahuac ISD. I was head girls basketball, and head track. And so I bounced around just to kind of check those boxes off to put myself in position to be a head football coach faster out in Texas, not realizing that, eventually my wife and I would move back to Georgia.
So what was the football? Was that in the Houston area as well?
Yes, sir. They were all in Houston
Okay.
area.
So what was the football like out there? Was it like everybody says, everything's bigger and
Man, it
better in
is
Texas?
it is insane. Like the facilities in Houston are insane. I mean they rival some small FCS colleges. Like um with the new stadium that you see at Buford, right, in Georgia, that's almost every high school stadium in the Houston area.
Right.
Like they all look like that. And so just going into some of those places, man, and seeing those facilities and seeing the kids and how much the kids train and um, you know, I mean it's like a well-oiled machine. Like Houston football or Texas football is very big. Like it's huge, man. And they put a lot of money into it. Um, I was out here for about 8 years. I don't think I bought shoes in 8 years or I didn't have to buy any type of gear or apparel. Like, we had contracts with different clothing brands like Adidas or what have Adidas was the most common. But I mean, they literally give you gear, and I like it was crazy. But yeah, it's a big deal out here for sure.
That's awesome. So then you get your first head coaching opportunity at Monroe in Albany.
hmm Yeah,
S-
absolutely.
And that was this past year your first year, or was this
Now
your second year?
I'm actually going into year five.
Five. Good
Um,
Lord, I'm not even
going into
close.
year five.
It seems
So
like,
yeah,
well, for some reason, it seems like it was year two or three to me. It seems like you just
yeah.
got there.
Yeah, it took us a minute to get our presence going and things of that nature and to really make some noise. My first 2 years, was kind of that filling out year. And, I tell my coaches, like, I don't know it all, man. So, um, at the end of the day, man, like we all got to work together. I'm learning as some of them are learning. And, like I said, as a head coach, I don't know it all and I'm figuring some things out. And, I'm not above asking for help. I'm not above, talking to other people, seeing what they do, just trying to figure it out. And because again, a lot of my connections and a lot of the things that I did, even though I'm from Georgia, a lot of my professional career was spent in Texas. And so, I'm trying to make the adjustment to high school football in Georgia and, what guys and what different programs do to compete and things of that nature. And so, it took us a minute to kind of I guess, gain some relevancy, if you will. We made the playoffs back to back years. My third year, we actually played for the region championship. We played Harvard for the region championship and lost by 11 points. And so we had a pretty good year. Year three, um, we were kind of in a down cycle last year, but we still made the playoffs, and we're looking to turn things around again this year.
So when you got your first head coaching job, what were some of the challenges? How did the interview process go? I mean, what did you go in and sell as like, this is my program, this is my vision? I mean, you'd been a lot of different places, and you grew up
Yeah,
in a place where it was a one horse town, a one, and
absolutely.
Albany is definitely not that because you're
Yeah.
competing with Doherty and Westover, and well, it
hmm
used to be Albany High, but there's not that
Yeah.
anymore. But you're dealing
Right.
with other schools in the system, and you've got people around you. You
Mhm.
know what did you have to go in and sell? What did you sell as
Um,
your program and your vision for Monroe?
so funny story, I didn't even apply for the Monroe job. I actually applied for Westover. I was familiar with Downs and what he did, and he was exiting the same year that Coach Truitt was leaving Monroe. And I applied for Westover. I didn't get a call back. I was still in Texas at the time. But my resume was sent over to Dr. Polite, who was the principal at Monroe. And the AD, Mr. Cobb, he gave me a call and literally started interviewing me on the spot, like from a phone call, no heads up. I had no idea what was happening. He was just like, "Hey, is this Coach Herring?" I was like, "Yes, sir." And he just starts firing off questions, and I was like, oh, like we're doing this right now. So,
Yeah.
but he asked me a lot of questions just about. He was more focused on leadership. It wasn't really about X's and O's. It was just more leadership style. How would I effectively run a program? And I could answer those questions honestly from experience because being out in Houston, especially at Baytown Lee, Coach Finn kind of allowed us as assistants to run everything. And so he was more of the political guy, shaking hands, kissing babies. He would, talk to the kids at the end of practice. But as far as running practice, he allowed his assistant coaches to kind of do it. And so we had a lot of experience in just the logistical side of running things as far as football is concerned. And so, um, you know, I could speak confidently about that stuff and, hey, this is how I would do it. I would do this, I would do that. This is what I'm looking to bring in. I knew I needed to change the culture at Monroe. Um, I knew I needed to focus on academics. Just talking to some guys that I knew from the collegiate level. I know they talked about how it was tough to recruit some kids from Albany just because of, GPA and things of that nature. So I set a team GPA goal of 3.0 my first year going in, and we actually accomplished that goal. But we just speaking to that stuff got me in the door. It got me the opportunity, and I put all of it in a booklet. And when I went in and I interviewed in front of the panel, Dr. Polite and Mr. Cobb, they kept that booklet on their desk and they held me to it. Like, hey man, you said you can do this, this, and this. We want to see this, this, and this. And so they kind of held my feet to the fire with that and gave me my opportunity. And I'm forever grateful to both of those guys. They've actually moved up in the district now. They're no longer at Monroe High School, but they're at the district office. But I'm forever grateful for those guys giving me my first opportunity.
So when you got to Monroe, what was the first thing that you thought you needed to establish and get? Was it weight room? Was it staff? Was it a combination of things? What was one of the first things when you got there? Obviously building relationships with the kids, but
Yes.
what
Yeah.
were some things that what was your checklist going in? All right, we got to get this done when we get in, like first month.
So, so there's a lot as a head coach that you want to put your fingerprint on. And depending on where you go, depending on what the culture's like and what's already happening, there's some things that you don't mess with. But when I got into Monroe, my big thing is trying to get kids to the next level, trying to get kids to the collegiate level. Like I'm big on that. I want to give every kid that wants an opportunity to play at the collegiate level that opportunity. And so when I got in, the first thing I did was I started looking at their grades and GPAs. And like, honest to God, no lie, the first thing I did once I did that within my first month, because we were in the COVID year. But I asked my principal, like, hey man, since we're doing like half day classes or what have you, like it was a funky schedule the way they had it, because it was kind of integrating kids back to regular school as opposed to, being quarantined or being at home. I took them all to the to the auditorium and I put them in study hall. I was like, man, we gotta raise this GPA. Because there's a lot of talent there. I tell people all the time, like Monroe could really be a gold mine as far as talent. Those kids are very athletic. They got a lot of length. They can run. But trying to get them in position to play at the collegiate level, I was like, we got to get these GPAs up. We got to get them more attractive so that college coaches will even look at them or have conversations with them about attending college, because it's not just football. Like you go to college, you're not just a football player. It's school too. So um, that was the first thing I did within the first month was take them to study hall in the auditorium. Now I also knew we had to get stronger. We kind of fixed that going into year two, um, because going into our first year, we you got a new offensive system, new defensive system, and so we kind of played a lot of younger kids. I knew that my principal and AD would give me some time to build it, and they kept saying, they know Rome wasn't built in a day, so it wasn't a ton of pressure to win right away. And so for us, it was like, all right, let's go with the younger kids. Let's take our lumps year one. And then year two, year three, we know we'll be in a position to win, because we got kids who have a ton of experience. You can't replace experience. Like there's just no replacement for it. And so that was kind of the approach that we took. I brought Israel Troop in to be my OC, and Alex Martin in to be my DC, and they were phenomenal coordinators, man. They kind of allowed me to, you know, do the academic stuff and be the political part. Like they kind of ran practice. I was also like, I was in that SAM role, what they call school administration manager, which is kind of a principal without actually the credentials, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was a lot of meetings. I was kind of in all the focus meetings and school meetings, climate and culture meetings at the school and things of that nature, which would kind of have me late to practice sometimes when those meetings ran over. But Troop and Martin were able to kind of get things going in the right direction, and so they were a great addition to the staff, helping us get things going and moving and in the right direction. And then they went on to different places after year one. And I brought in some different coordinators, but year two, our biggest focus was just the weight room. Let's get the weight room going. Let's get the guys bigger and stronger. Let's establish a culture, of having some type of physicality and dominance on the field. Physically, football is physically imposing your will on another man. So in order to do that, you got to be strong. And so that was our biggest focus year two, and that's what kind of helped us turn the corner the most. You know what I mean?
And then year three,
Year three, it was
your
the same.
region runner-ups, and
Yeah,
you start
year
seeing
three, man. You saw the benefits of it, yeah, because
right.
those guys were now seniors. Year three was my biggest senior class. We had like 30 seniors, and I had all of those guys from the first day that I stepped up foot on campus. And so, when I first got there, we didn't have any guys in the 1,000-pound club. And I don't even know if people still kind of measure that as much, but bench, squat, power clean. We measure that stuff, and we want explosive guys. And, we didn't have any guys in the 1,000-pound club my first year. But when we went into year three, we had like 7, 8. And then we had a bunch of skill guys who were close. And so you could kind of see it on the field. Our guys were more confident. They were stronger. We were able to run the ball more effectively. I'm an air raid guy, so I'd like to think that I can throw the ball 30, 40 times a game and be successful. But Georgia football, man, you got to be able to establish the run game if you want to win. And so we learned that pretty quickly. And, we were able to establish the run a little bit more in year three, and it paid dividends for us.
So now you're going into year 5 and
Mhm.
you're pretty established. I mean, you kind of probably know how things are going to go and have an idea of how you don't worry so much probably about looking over your shoulder or, you kind
Right.
of your program's in place more or less. The kids know what
Yes,
to
sir.
expect. There's
Mhm.
stability. They know you're going to be there. They're not worried about,
Right.
whatever. And that's really important for those kids at schools
Absolutely.
like Westover, Monroe, and even Doherty. There's been a lot of turnover there, not at Monroe necessarily, but at the other
Yeah.
ones in the county, high turnover at the head coaching spots in the past 10 years. And that's
Absolutely.
huge for those kids to know that you're going to be there. What are some things that you've done differently with spring ball that you did? I mean, obviously you had the COVID year, but outside the
Right.
COVID year, how have you changed how you approach spring?
For me, spring is always just about seeing what we got. And so that was different for the kids because we have this spring game and we do it versus Westover. And it's turned into something that I don't really like for it to be. Um, it's more of like a rivalry type thing, but it's spring. And so my approach to
Yeah.
spring is,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's spring, man. We're not, I mean, we've only had 9 days of practice. Like, so for me, spring, my approach to spring is let's install our base stuff. Let's look at what we got. We know we just graduated some starters. Who are those? Where are those question marks? Do we have guys that are ready to fill those shoes right now? Or going into the summer, we know we got to generate some competition to figure out who the next guy's going to be, that type deal. And so for us in the spring, we get a lot of guys reps. It's basic install. It's not a lot of stuff that like we can get creative in the regular season, very creative offensively. In the spring, we generally run maybe 2 run schemes or what have you. We run like 2 or 3 drop back concepts, 2 quick game concepts. Like we're very vanilla. And we just want to see kids fly around and see who's got something to them, who deserves to be in this spot. Like we're generating competition to see what we got and what we need to work on going into the summer. And so I put a lot of stock into summer work. I don't put as much into the spring. Now, year going into year 3, that spring, we were able to do a lot more because we had 3-year starters. Like our entire starting lineup came back those years. I think year 2, we only graduated 6 kids total. And so going in, and only 2 of them were starters. So going into year 3, we were able to do a lot of different things offensively and defensively just because we were returning everybody. But year 1, year 2, and even this past spring, we weren't able to do as much, which was fine. That's kind of what we wanted anyway, kind of dial it back, see what we got. We had a freshman play the quarterback position, and, it was, all right, what can we do to make him comfortable? We want to have a good showing. We want him to look good. But if we throw too much at him with too many reads, can he handle it? And so, that's where we were trying to figure out going into the spring. What does he look like? Is he going to be ready for the season? Hey, do we need to put a heavier emphasis on the run game? Is he able to handle all the passing stuff, all the concepts? So we were really, that's really what we use spring for. I love the competition aspect of it, but for us, it's not a matter of winning and losing. It's more reps. How do we get guys a high number of reps to where we get enough film to evaluate whether or not they're ready for the fall, or, hey, we got to really focus on this, and this to get this kid ready.
Yeah, you almost need to find you a spring game with somebody over in Alabama or on the other side of 75.
No
Because
doubt,
you play
man.
somebody in town,
No
them
doubt.
kids see each other at the mall and in the road, and they're gonna be talking trash. I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
they kids.
Absolutely.
I
And
mean, that's the way they are.
it gets chippy for sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm sure it
absolutely.
does. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
you need to take them somewhere they don't know none of them people.
No
I mean, you know how
doubt. No
kids are.
doubt.
They're like, coffee.
Yeah.
You never heard of them people before.
Right.
Yeah, well, they won a state championship. We don't care.
We don't care. Right.
Who are they?
Right.
Well, you know how they
But
are. You go other places and their kids like, who are they? And in your mind,
absolutely.
you're going, well, they've won 1,000 games, whatever. And you're like, oh, they're from wherever. And the kid's like, okay, bet, let's go.
Absolutely.
But if they're people they see,
yeah,
if they're Lee
it's no longer
County
about
or
football.
if they're Lee County or if they're Doherty or Worth County or people in your area, Thomasville, people like that, they know who that they could see them out in public.
Right.
Then it turns into a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You need to find you somebody like off for the spring game anyway,
No doubt. And so that's what we do in the summer with them. So I don't do anything in Doherty County over the summer, and that's intentional for that reason. So I don't throw against Doherty or Westover. I don't do OTAs versus Doherty or Westover. That's intentional. Like I want them to focus on the work. I want them to focus on getting better. And I also want them to see different competition, different levels of competition, different programs. We do a lot of crossover work with Thomas County Central. We do a lot of crossover work with Coffee. I love taking them to Coffee. Coffee rolls out the red carpet for us. Like we're an extension of them whenever we come. Coach Cohen and staff, man, and Coach White, the AD, who was also my quarterbacks coach when I was in high school. Like we're very appreciative of them doing that. And so our kids kind of get to see the culture at other places. We just did an OTA last week at Valdosta. And so those kids having an opportunity to practice with and against Valdosta and kind of see how they measure up to a prominent one of the winningest 6A high schools in the state of Georgia, or one of the winningest schools in the state of Georgia, period. Like having an opportunity to practice with those guys, see how they do things. And, I want them to see different levels of success just so that they can see, all right, this is how they train. This is how they approach practice. This is their intensity level. You know what I mean? And so hopefully we some of those habits rub off on us and we take it back to Doherty County and, we increase our level of intensity and our level of play. And those guys see that, hey man, we actually didn't do bad. Like we played well against those schools. if we do this, if we just do this little bit of we add this, that what we saw from that program, it could be the thing that helps us turn the corner.
So, how did you approach? Has your approach for the summer changed as far as days and time? Some people have gone to the 3-day work week
Yeah.
in June, or do you stay
Mhm.
the 4-day? How have you done June over the past 4 years, 5 years?
So the last I was 4-day when I first got there. Um, excuse me. A lot of it was I didn't really know any better. That's all I knew was work. Just talking to some different coaches, they told me that they do the 3-day workday. You allow your kids some time to not get burnt out, have some vacation, enjoy their family. And so the way we do it, I kind of took Coach Strickland's model from where we do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we give them the long weekends. So that way they can go out of town with their families and, they can do different things without having to stress or worry about missing practice on a Monday. So they get those 2 days off, and now we get after it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but you got Friday and Monday off. So give them 4 days to kind of go. So we know that some of them are going to take vacations or what have you. We don't want them to feel like they can't have that family time, and so that's how we kind of structure practice. But hey, when you're here, let's get after it. Let's get better. Let's get to work. And they understand that, and I think they like that a little bit better.
And then when they
So it's
come back
working
in
out for us.
July,
July, we the first 2 weeks we keep that same schedule, and then the last 2 weeks going into acclimation and first week of practice, we're back to 5 days.
oh, so you jumped to 5 days.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Mm,
sir.
okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I like asking people because we still do the 4-day week, and I
Mhm.
remember when I first got started in the old days, we'd go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and
Mhm.
a lot of times we went in the evenings. We didn't do mornings, and
Yeah.
we
Yes.
went in the evenings, and a lot of it was because the kids worked,
Yeah.
and then you didn't do Wednesdays because they went to church.
Church.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so you didn't do Wednesday evenings. So I mean, you grew up in South Georgia, so I
Yes,
mean, it was
sir.
and that's just the way it was, and kids would be out, throwing watermelons or working on some kind of farm or something,
Right.
and they'd come
Right.
to football to get a break.
Yeah.
It'd be like go lift weights and run around and throw football. Yeah, that's a break from what we've been doing all
Right.
day. So
Absolutely.
it was just different back then than it is now. And
Yeah.
I've just always been curious, and I ask everybody like how they do it now. You younger guys, how your approach to it, because it's evolved so much, and we've become so much more conscious about sports performance and their bodies and
Mhm.
the mental health aspect of it and everything else
Right.
that it just intrigues me, and I love to hear different ways and how you guys handle that. And
Yeah.
do you do any
Yeah.
OTAs in July, or do you start
We
focusing
do.
more on yourselves?
We do. We kind of dial back some of the 7-on-7 and traveling stuff. So this year I told our coaches in June I want to hit 3 colleges, 3 competitive 7-on-7s, but in July we won't do any. So July we focus more on us, but we will do an OTA and coffee. And so we'll go down to coffee for their OTA with Florida High, Choctaw, Lincoln, and a couple other schools. And so again, they'll get to see some prominent programs from other places, in addition to coffee. And we'll get that work in with those schools, and then it'll be so focused on us and making sure we have our stuff installed. I just had a conversation with both of my coordinators. Hey, make sure everything that we need to work on going into the season. Red zone packages, third down packages, what have you. Make sure we have all that stuff installed. Personnel packages, NASCAR series, everything that we're going to do in the season. Let's go ahead and start implementing it now because we also Albany is a big basketball town. So in June, we have quite a few guys who start for us in football who also play basketball. And so all of those guys, I kind of allowed them to, hey, go and play basketball in June. They would come and get a workout in, but they didn't really practice a whole lot or travel with us for football. They were just in the gym with basketball. I don't want to overwork them. I don't want to, do too much. My first year at Monroe, we had a kid who was doing both. He was going back and forth. He would do, he would lift weights with us for football, and he would train with us, and we worked out in the mornings, and then he would get maybe an hour, hour and a half break before basketball started. And now he's full blast with basketball, playing basketball games in the evening. And that kid tore his ACL, and he was like a major like a kid that we were really looking for to, be a big part of the program for us and, make a lot of plays. And it was his senior year. And so that kind of scared me a little bit and kind of made me rethink some things like, hey, man, maybe we're doing too much over the summer. Like, so maybe I should dial it back on the basketball guys a little bit. And that way, they're less likely to get injured. It's not, 100%, but they're less likely to get injured because we're not putting so much on their bodies.
Right.
So now they have the proper time to recover and things of that nature. And so in June, hey, go play basketball. Just make sure you get your lift in.
Right. They're doing something.
They're doing something, correct. And basketball shape is a little more different than football shape. But at the end of the day, they come out and they're able to run. They're able to go. And so they got their lift in, they go and they just shoot, they get their shots up or what have you. And then July, they come back with us. There's no more basketball.
Right.
And so that's worked out for us pretty good too. And, we're able to recruit the gym a little bit more because I tell those guys, like, I'm not trying to pull you from basketball. I don't want to take basketball away from you, but just open up some different doors for you. Hey, you could be a multi-sport athlete. And that's what a lot of college coaches are looking for. They want guys who don't necessarily specialize in one thing, but guys who can do different movements and can handle different disciplines and things that the different sports teach. And now you show that, hey, I can play these multiple sports in the afternoons and during the year, in addition to keeping my grades up, you look more attractive to a college coach. And,
Absolutely.
if you're, and if you're a 6'2", 6'3" post player, you might want to come rush the passer or catch some jump balls. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you open up some different doors for yourself. And so it's worked out for us.
Yeah, I saw that tweet today. It had Kevin Durant saying there just ain't no more 6'2" guards in the league no more. You might want to go see your football coach.
No doubt, man.
And I was well, he ain't lying.
Yeah.
Maybe to listen to them. And it's hard. It's hard. And I've been saying this for years. It's hard for the average everyday person. It's not slipping, the kids like you slipping on my dreams or whatever. Right. No, baby. It's hard for the average everyday person to understand that I don't care what the professional sport is outside of maybe golf. Mm-hmm. They're not normal sized humans.
No.
Professional baseball players are a lot bigger than you think they are.
They're huge.
When you see them in person, professional basketball players are not normal sized humans. I mean, if you see them walking around at the mall up at a mall in Atlanta, up at whichever mall you might want to go to,
right.
You're going to be like, oh, that guy plays for the Hawks or he plays for the Falcons because they're not, they're mutants. And I don't mean that in an ugly way. They're just, they're not normal sized people.
Right.
And, professional football players are not normal sized people.
Right.
And, looking at a 6'1", 6'2" child and going, look, dude, they're paying people to play college football now.
Right. Life-changing money at this point.
And you're going to get an education.
Right.
So just a thought. Just throwing this out there.
Yeah.
There's a different opportunity out there for you now than there was when you came up and surely when I was coming up. So
absolutely, man. And we were in Troy and I had a freshman defensive lineman. He'll be a sophomore going into this season, but he got offered from Troy. And, some of my older kids were kind of looking at him like, Coach, you don't have any film. He didn't play last season. How did he get an offer? And I did, right? But I love the way the coach from Troy put it. He said the first thing they look for is, are you genetically gifted enough to play here? That's the first thing they look at. That has absolutely nothing to do with anything that you can control as a player.
Oh, yeah.
You can be the most dominant player on earth, but if you're 5'7", 5'8", they're not checking for you. You know what I mean? Like, you're miniature.
Just a good little high school football player.
Correct. But, this kid, he's 6'2", 250 with a good body, good frame. and he's quick off the ball. He used to play quarterback. He just gained some weight over the COVID years, and now he's 6'2", 250, and a defensive lineman. And they say, hey, this kid has potential, in addition to his size. And so, that's how he got the offer. And so I love the way that coach put it. Like, you can't control genetics, but that's the first thing they look for. Are you genetically gifted enough to play at the Division I level? Does that mean you can't play college football somewhere? No. But whether or not you get the opportunity to play Division I is beyond your control. It's all about who mom or dad procreated with.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, it has nothing to do with anything.
If your mama's a big lady and your daddy was a big dude,
right?
I mean,
you don't get some Division
come
I
on,
calls.
man. Yeah, I mean, I got an 8th grader he's going to be a freshman, and he's 6'3", 330.
Right.
And kid can move.
Right.
And I'm looking at him, and some days I forget that he's 14. And I'll climb all over his butt. And some of the coaches forget, and I'm like, well, all right, he's just a baby.
Right.
He ain't never played on a Friday night. We went to OTA at Toombs last week, and the look on his face all day was like a deer in headlights.
Right.
And he had a great day. I mean, he was fine, but you could tell he was like, oh my God, these people are for real. But I mean, he was fine. And I'm just sitting there going, well, I want to grab him, and not that he does these things, but I just grab kids these days. I'm like, look, man, if you'll leave vape alone and you'll fall in love with the doggone weight room and not be a turd up in the school building, you are a walking NIL package.
No doubt.
In 3 years, you are going to make some money.
Cash in, absolutely.
We'll take care of the rest of this stuff. Because you can't teach 6'5",
no,
340.
Not at all.
And like you said, I mean, I've had college coaches that, I've worked with some before that've come to the high school ranks. And one, Casey Vaught, that's out in Texas now, when he was the O-line coach at at Mercer, he said that, and he's a 6'3", 6'4" guy. And he said that when he would meet a kid, if they couldn't look him in the eye when he shook their hand, and not from a social standpoint, from a physical standpoint.
Absolutely.
Can't come play for me.
Right.
If he's not at least as big as I am, he cannot play offensive line at this level. So like you said, just from a pure measurables, we don't even have to look at tape. We're not, I'm looking at your hands, your feet. Where's your butt in relation to your legs? You got a high butt, you got high calves, you got little ankles, and people laugh about it, but we try to tell.
Those are the tells, right?
He's like, well, he's twitchy,
Right? Absolutely.
It's like, dude, and he's gonna get bigger. He's not.
Right.
He ain't getting no smaller.
Right.
But I think I think one of the most awesome things I've heard you say about what you're doing for the young people at Monroe and what your philosophy is making sure that they have that academic piece on point first, because regardless of how twitchy you are and how genetically gifted you are, if you don't have them grades, they're just going to keep riding on to the next school.
Correct. Absolutely.
And trying to get the young people to understand that this day and time, with them getting paid, we're asking people to invest in you. So you've got to have some character about yourself.
Absolutely. And I try to put it to my guys this way. When you look at going to college, and even for the guys that aren't genetically gifted enough to play at the Division I level, right? So let's say you're a Division II guy, NAIA guy, D3 guy, what have you, right? Well, the higher your GPA, the more money you get yourself. So, when you get Hope used to be a set number. It was like 4,500, 4,600. I think someone told me that they're switching it to where it covers full tuition. I don't know how true that is. I'll find out soon or shortly. But if you're a Division II guy, right, the higher your GPA, the more likely you are to get an opportunity, just simply because it doesn't cost the institution or the football program as much money to get you in. So if you can play and you got some ability, you got some talent, you can get an opportunity because your school, for the most part, is paid for. And so every time, you go through a school year and you make an F or you make C's and your GPA drops below 3.0, I tell them, hey, man, just consider it like throwing piles of money out the window. because now mommy and daddy have to come up with money to pay for you to go to college, which will less likely get you to that position that you want to be, because most people don't have 14, 15,000 to throw at a college or university for you to go to school. And so, being in high school and having college be your goal, you got to set a plan. I tell them start with the end in mind. So if my goal is to go to college, what are my action steps to get there? Well, one of which needs to be I need to have a high GPA, because even if I leave the state and I don't get hope, I can still get academic money from the institution. So again, that's still money, right? That does not go towards my football scholarship, right? That's money that's added. So I may get it back, and I may get some money back. I may be able to keep my Pell just because I had high grades in high school. So every time you go through a year and you make poor grades, you make poor decisions in the classroom, you're literally throwing money out the window.
Yeah, I don't know
And
how they term it these days, but we used to say that was packaging people.
absolutely,
They
yeah,
can
they
they
call it
can
stacking money now, but yes,
yeah, they can
yes,
package you.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
And
yeah,
that's important.
absolutely,
And that
absolutely,
and teaching that to those kids, the business side of it, I think is very important for them to learn, because there's a lot of adults that don't understand the business side of it.
right,
That,
and that's essentially what it is.
and there's so many of these kids that are probably going to be, if not first generation, they have the potential to be the first generation to actually finish college.
Yes,
And
yes,
so the understanding of how the game works
hmm
and the business side of it, it's them having the business literacy necessary to make those steps. I think that's awesome that you're doing that for your kids,
yes,
and the
sir.
job that you're doing at Monroe and the journey that you've had to get there has been quite awesome. And I'm just appreciative that you came on and shared your story with us today.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, man. I think it's great for what you're doing to get coaches' stories out there, and I just appreciate the opportunity to be on here and share mine.
Well, thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.